I stepped into my father's corporate merger celebration just as his new wife hissed, "Have the bouncers throw her out." I turned around silently, then revoked the agricultural patent that kept their entire empire afloat. My mother passed away when I was just a teenager. A sudden allergic reaction to a bee sting out in the field, gone before the ambulance even cleared the county line. She was a master botanist, the kind of genius who could look at a barren slope of cracked clay and know exactly what it needed to thrive. Our family vineyard was her life work. She spent years crossbreeding a drought-resistant grape that completely revolutionized the local wine industry. My father loved pouring glass for critics and accepting the applause, but the dirt under his fingernails was always just for show. The true magic belonged entirely to her. He married Meredith shortly after the funeral. Meredith came with a daughter, Brooke, who was slightly older than me and possessed a terrifying talent for claiming things she didn't earn. Brooke was quickly shoved into every promotional brochure. Soon, she was being introduced to distributors as the brilliant young palate behind the vineyard's success. I was introduced as the quiet daughter from the first marriage who liked bugs. Once at a harvest dinner, Meredith told a prominent wine critic she just lacked the family passion. My father nodded along, twirling his glass. I moved out the day I legally could. I paid for my own degrees in soil science, consulted for farms across the country, and learned to stop expecting a father who was never going to show up. Over the years, the vineyard blew up. My father plastered his face on every bottle. Brooke became chief operations officer, giving smug interviews to lifestyle magazines about her deep connection to the earth. My mother's name was systematically scrubbed from the company history. Then, 2 months ago, I was helping my uncle clear out his basement and found an old metal lockbox tucked behind a workbench. It belonged to my mother. Inside was a thick stack of certified legal filing and a letter addressed to me. My mother hadn't just created the famous rootstock. She had aggressively patented the genetic sequence under a blind trust. She had given my father's business a temporary, non-transferable license to cultivate the vines. That license explicitly stated that if the company was ever put up for sale, the rights immediately reverted to the trust unless the sole beneficiary, me, signed off. My father had recently announced a massive, historic buyout with a global beverage conglomerate. They were selling the whole estate. Brooke had already bought a yacht on credit against her anticipated payout. Meredith was bragging about retiring to the Riviera. They were selling the very dirt my mother bled for, assuming they owned the right to the vine growing in it. I went to the final signing celebration at the estate grand tasting room. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted to see if my father would acknowledge the woman who actually built the empire he was cashing in on. He gave a sweeping toast. He thanked Meredith for her vision. He thanked Brooke for her tireless innovation. He raised a glass to himself. Nothing else. I stepped forward from the back of the room. Meredith caught my eye, her smile instantly hardening into a sneer. She leaned over to the event coordinator. "Have the bouncers throw her out. She's trespassing." The room fell awkwardly silent. 2 large men in black suits approached me. I looked past them, straight at my father. He deliberately turned his back and picked up an appetizer. I didn't argue. I just walked out to my car, opened my laptop, and hit send on an email I had drafted to the conglomerate lead acquisition lawyer. I attached my mother's patent record, the blind trust document, and a formal cease and desist regarding the commercial transfer of the intellectual property. I drove to my quiet apartment, poured myself a glass of cheap supermarket wine, and watched a documentary. At exactly 8:45 p.m., my phone started ringing. The notifications lit up my dark living room in a frantic, desperate rhythm. The conglomerate had pulled out. The loans were instantly called in. By sunrise, headlights were tearing up my driveway.